Let me bring in my guest. I want to bring in my guest. We are joined with the man himself, Laith Marouf. How you doing, my man? You doing okay this morning?
Doing good. How about you?
I am doing okay. I'm fighting off a cold, but I'm trying not to acknowledge it. Laith Marouf is an award-winning multimedia producer and media policy law consultant. You can check him out at Free Palestine TV. I usually see you on Twitter, but you're also on Free Palestine TV, that video, correct?
Yes.
Excellent.
FreePalestine.video.
Free Palestine, that video. Thank you. Um, I want to go into that for a moment for this. This article, 31 Israeli soldiers killed by friendly fire in Gaza. For one, after watching many of these videos of these people being killed, it doesn't seem to be friendly fire. It seems that they just don't want to own up to the fact that the death toll in Gaza has increased. And I'm trying to figure out why. Is it something to do with the attacks by Iran? Is it something to do with the 12-day war? But the numbers of Israelis that have been getting killed, ambushed, attacked, and whatnot has dramatically gone up, seemingly anyway, over the course of the last month. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's two things. Number one, obviously, the Zionist military has been depleted in terms of energy, right? 22 months. They are occupying a large part of Gaza, and they have to create all these supply lines and paths of movement for their soldiers in enemy territory, right? So the further you're in, the more exposed your movements and supply lines. So they have set themselves up for this. Of course, all the numbers that the Zionists have been claiming about their dead and injuries are a fraction of the reality of the real numbers of Israeli soldiers killed and the real numbers of Israeli soldiers injured. When the Minister of Defense says there's 15,000 bereaved families, he's admitting to 15,000 dead soldiers. And this is most probably a fraction of the reality. We know that Israel lied about all their losses in every war. You could go look at it, and then you can see the numbers that were admitted decades after in each of those wars, and how much they were at times 10 times the original number that the Israelis admitted to. And this includes, for instance, the missiles of Saddam Hussein during the Kuwait-Iraq war. The Israelis for 20 somewhat years said nobody died in those Scud missiles flying from Iraq on Tel Aviv, and in the end it turned out that there's 90 somewhat of them killed in those missiles, other than the injured. So if we take that as an example of the history, the record of the Zionists, they must really have tens of thousands of soldiers dead, and that means all the cadre that we see right now on the ground, 22 months later, have almost everybody that came in those first waves of the war are not there anymore. It's also younger soldiers that haven't had experience for long, because everybody who has been killed by the resistance. So they are already beyond fatigue. They're having to get soldiers on the front line without any experience of even having time to get them to have experience of killing Palestinians in the West Bank that are unarmed, or trying to manage them before sending them onto the front lines in Gaza.
That makes sense. So you don't see it as the Iranian attack somehow degraded Israeli capability? Because one of the things that we're learning, and I don't even know why people were shocked by this, but it came out that many of the locations that Iran had hit, Israel had effectively hit, that Iran had been hitting military bases over and over and over again. Now, to me, this was a no duh. They had obviously put in a blockade on anybody given information about these attacks and the effectiveness of these attacks. But the fact that you're putting out a black, meaning me hiding something shows that there's something to hide, right? So it's like whether you put a blockade on that information or whether you just not put a blockade and show it, equal on some level to the same thing, that something happened in those areas that you don't want people to know about. And so to me, it was obvious that they were hitting military targets, but people were apparently shocked by the fact that Israel was hiding their losses. Do you think it's related to that also, meaning their military capability were being degraded in that war, especially in areas of the occupied territories, in a way that has diminished their capability here, where you're now seeing these attacks, you're now seeing these things successfully, you're now seeing the death toll go up. I agree with you that they were hiding the death toll in the beginning, but it seems that more of this death toll is being released now in a way that wasn't prior. Maybe I'm wrong on this.
Well, look, obviously, beyond the depletion of Israel's air defense systems and the targeting of their intelligence and electronic warfare capabilities, as well as targeting their air bases, those were all targeted by Iran. So yes, that has direct effect on the battlefield in Gaza, because if the listening posts that the Israelis controlled in Beersheba, looking into Gaza with all the electronic warfare, and the command centers that control the drones and what have you, have been hit, that's going to affect the performance of the Zionist military inside the extermination camp. Similarly, the destruction of the Mossad and Shin Bet and Amman and Unit 8200 and all of those of the Zionists affects their performance on the ground inside Gaza. So yes, that has direct effects. But if we look at those videos that we just watched, you were watching before getting me on there, we can also tell that the equipment for the military, the army forces, the ground forces of the Zionists, are also getting degraded after 22
Yes.
months. You can look it up on Wiki, the size of how many tanks the Israelis have, right? And we've watched thousands of these videos over the last 22 months, practically every video showing us a tank being blown up, right? So how much tanks does Israel have still? And how many of them had to be refurbished and using older generation? And you look at the APCs that they're using, they're older generation. So clearly there's degrading capacity even for the equipment on the ground. Even if Iran didn't hit the let's say where all these tanks are held, Iran concentrated on air power capabilities of the Israelis and their intelligence and their air defenses. They didn't concentrate much on the ground forces of the Zionists.
I wish they did concentrate on the ground forces. And I don't know why they didn't do it. I mean, Iran is now threatening, if you attack us again, we would unleash this magnificent, quote unquote, slap, as they call it. Why do you think they were so limited in what they went after? I mean, because that gave, effectively, the point I'm making is the war gave them the opportunity to go after Israel directly, especially from the standpoint of Gaza. But they didn't seem to make that an overwhelming priority in regards to the attacks.
Well, look at the propaganda of the enemy. The enemy is telling the Iranian people, hey, your elites have been spending money for decades on the Palestinian resistance, the Lebanese resistance, Yemeni resistance, Syrian resistance, and you could be doing much better if you go Iran first. Okay, this, you see that America first, Jordan first.
Yeah.
The goddamn American representative of Trump just arrived, by the way, in Beirut. We can talk about it in a second. But also, he was pitching from the presidential palace here this morning in his live press conference, Lebanon first to the Lebanese.
Yeah, I want to get into that, by the way,
So,
because I'm amazed by that
so
too.
yeah, so the Iranian state has to always balance its how it addresses its own populace. Iran did not attack the Zionist colony. The Zionists came and attacked Iran.
Yes.
Iran could have entered the war on Palestine, which it did in two stages, if you remember, during and only when it was attacked. Why? Because it has to tell its people, it has to show this new generation of Iranians who didn't live the war of liberation, the Islamic revolution of 1979, and or the genocide committed by Saddam Hussein and the Americans against the Iranian people for 8 years, the 8-year war, as they call it. So they had to show this new generation that, look, we are not aggressors as a state. They are the one attacking us. So they have to even always frame that to their people to fight this propaganda war. Mm-hmm. And they have been successful, in fact. And you'll see probably from all the content that we'll be releasing from Iran on Free Palestine TV over the next 2 days, the sound that is now coming from people who are critical before to the the Islamic character of the state and or the governing structures. The new generation of Iranians that just lived this nasty aggression by the Zionists, by the United States, want even a more radical leadership, right? And they are happy to stand behind the Ayatollah, even if they're not religious themselves. Okay?
Yeah.
And they see a pride now in how Iran responded and their capabilities. So I think things are moving in stages, and the biggest problem that we all have to remember here, as people that are looking for an end to imperialism and the genocide in Palestine. Yes, we are all impatient. There's a lot of things. But remember, Iran and or the Axis of Resistance members are really fighting the whole world combined. Maybe just China and Russia sitting on the side, and Russia maybe not that much. So, it's a miracle almost that up until now, the Axis of Resistance has been able to engage the whole might of the empire with all its local components and propaganda machines and funding and war machines, and still keeping it at a standstill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We have to, and the strategy for all of the Axis of Resistance is to force the whole world to see the Zionist and the empire behind them, the whole Zionist empire, as the aggressors, never us, right? And which results now in people understanding that the resistance is just, and everybody ululates and celebrates and dances when they see missiles landing on Tel Aviv.
Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. On that one, I don't know how it's not accomplished. I mean, look, you would never get a good headline in the West, so I don't even know why anybody would try. But from the standpoint of the rest of the world, and you make a really good point. I was having a conversation with this woman from Iran, and she made the exact same point. She says, look, we had to go through negotiations because there's a generation here that wasn't around during the revolution. They don't, they think that Iran is the issue, that, if we negotiated with the US, then maybe things would have been better. And after this unprovoked attack, during negotiations, no less, after seeing the IAEA and the way that Europe behaved, that they became, I don't want to say radicalized, but they became very clear that the government is not the issue. Those monsters, they're at our gates, is the issue. And they were able to bring the country together in a way that could have never happened if they weren't attacked in the way that they were attacked. So no, you're completely